Hello, hello, people. Everyone's enjoying talking to each other, but they're going to stop now and listen to us. Welcome back. Everyone had a good lunch? Okay, great. It's very bright up here. My name is Michelle Jay. I work at the Advisory Council on the Status of Women, and I'm part of the working group for livable income and help to do a little bit of organizing for this wonderful event. So really glad to be here. And my privilege is to introduce our speaker this afternoon. We'll go to till 2:45. And her name is Meseret Hailiasus, and she lets me call her Messi, and I think all of us, because it's a very difficult name, perhaps, for some of us to say. I met her very briefly a couple of years ago in Ottawa and was so impressed, and I really wanted to make sure she applied to come here and be part of this event, and I'm really pleased she's here. Messi is an award-winning executive, social entrepreneur, and policy advocate championing social equity, financial inclusion, and tech-driven solutions for marginalized women. She's the CEO of the Canadian Centre for Women's Empowerment. She leads national and global efforts to combat economic abuse and influence systemic change through policy, research, and innovation across public, private, and nonprofit sectors. It's great to have Messi with us. I know that she's going to have really interesting things to say to us, and welcome to her. I'm going to turn it over to Messi.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Jane, for the brief introduction. And also, thank you so much for the organizing committee for inviting me to be here from Ottawa. It's my first experience being in PI. I was so warmly welcomed, and I'm happy to be here. And again, thank you so much, Jane, to be part of our national task force. And having someone like you having in our platform it means a lot. So my name is Mesret. You can call me Messi. So I'm going to share you today about how economic abuse, intersect with barriers, accessing universal, benefit. I know my accent is very thick. I will try to speak super slow. So before I start, I would like to acknowledge the land we work in Ottawa, which is we do most important work on unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and what we call Ottawa. We're committed to reconciliation and grounding work in justice in all community. And a little bit about me, I call myself as a noisemaker and industry disruptor for economic justice in Canada and beyond. And I found the Canadian Centre for Women Empowerment based on my lived experience as a survivor of economic and financial abuse. I know it's the firsthand the power and the importance of guaranteed income for a Black woman who look like me. And poverty doesn't take away my money and finance, but it took away my safety, dignity, and stability. And as a survivor, immigrant woman, as someone who has also experienced homeless for 16 months, and I didn't need even more programs, so I need basic right to exist my dignity. So in my lived experience, I was denied to access income support because of layered institutional barriers, and because of my gender, my identity, and my trauma as well. As systemic violence is so huge. And poverty forced me also to overperform. And as you know, it's very, very complicated. So that's why I am very vocal on basic income guarantee, not as a non-profit leader, but as a justice. So I would like to talk about the Canadian Centre for Women Empowerment. We are a national organization that works to address all forms of economic abuse. We advocate for system change on survivor-informed policy among financial institutions in collaboration with community partnership. And we are so far the only agency who raised the first policy in House of Commons, and of course in the United Nations as well, to address economic abuse. So we advocate for income support for survivors at all levels of government because our current system, as you know, it's so broken, and we're forcing survivors to fit in the broken system. And survivors are also failing through the system because of many barriers. So our mandate is always removing the structural barriers so that survivors, they can heal and then they can thrive. So most of our work, we do a lot of research. We conducted the first Canadian economic abuse research funded by WAGE. And we also conducted Ottawa-based research in the pandemic. And this research also informed the National Action Plan for Gender-Based Violence, and of course for the United Nations, CADIO, advocacy. And we do a lot of system change work. The system change is not only for the government, financial institutions, consumer lawyers, the housing, the telecom sector, the energy sector. So we work on sector-wide, and now recently it was the hospitality and the hotel industry. And we do a lot of training for Canadian Bankers Associations, for service providers, and of course, we launched also our first economic abuse screening tool for survivors. And we do a lot of advocacy on technology. Though, as you know, tech-facilitated abuse is also one of the barriers for a woman to access their own bank account. So last year, in collaboration with Women's Shelter Canada, we were able to convince the Canadian Bankers Association and eTrack to change the e-transfer policy. You may see that on the news. We work closely with CBC, and now in Canada, when someone wants to transfer money, which is less than $10, you cannot send any thank you message because unfortunately our bank, it doesn't even flag abusive behavior. I don't know if you know the story. There are 3 survivors who were killed because of e-transfer. So we want to make sure that our women, after they leave violence, they have safe and secure banking because our banking is our economic right. And of course, we have a peer support program. So I want to focus on the big basic income guarantee. So the basic income guarantee is just a momentum in Canada, and but if we are not unintentional, we are risking repeating the same mistake, assuming access means safety. And survivors of economic abuse often, live without any financial autonomy. And as you know, the abuser's best friend is taking a power and isolation. Power is all about finance and money, which is invisible and hidden. Nobody even understands. So abuser also manipulate, restrict, and steal any income what women she must have. And without secured system and survivor protection, even the basic income guarantee would be weaponized. So when we advocate, it's good to have the income, but we need to also understand the structural barrier, what women experience, especially after flee violence. So this is a huge part of our work right now. So I just want to share you some, in my slide, I'm so sorry if some of the code, it triggers you, just a big apology. This is actually survivors, usually, they share us from our support group. As you know, you may have many. We may have many, maybe the bank account is jointly detangled with your abuser, you want to leave. As you know, our financial system is not designed for financial equity. And this woman, even the basic income guarantee, still it's very hard even to touch because there is a consequence for a woman. This form of violence, as you know, it stays more than even 25 years after women she leave abusive relationship because of systemic barriers. So he made me to apply, then he took every dollar, even if I have even $20, he will punish her because of the systemic thing. So we need to consider when we advocate and basic income, this is a huge barrier for survivors, that's what I would love to share that. So I don't want to talk more about economic abuse, but it's worth to share you because for some of you, you may not have detailed understanding what economic abuse means because there was a lot of misunderstanding. So economic abuse it's a form of intimate partner violence. It involves money, dates, financial system tools to control. And it prevents survivor from having resources to live, to heal, and rebuild. It includes blocking access to employment, bank accounts, even child tax benefits. So people, they confuse with financial abuse. Financial abuse, as you know, is all about your finance, access to credit, access to your loan, and your financial resource. But economic abuse is financial abuse plus other economic resources, like it may be transportation, it may be medication, it may be housing, it may be other economic, like we have seen also many abusers this time, even restricting women not to pay her bill on electricity, hydro, those are kind of the most important economic resource, even telecommunication. We also learned that women in disabilities, they were denied to access even their wheelchair, taking battery out. It's kind of a coercive control thing. So women, she can't access her economic resource. So it's a tactic in line with coercive control. So this form of violence, there are 3 forms. So the first one is economic control, which is restricting access to bank account, cash, and any decision in the household. And the second one is economic exploitation. This is the most prevalent form of violence in UK, Australia, and in Canada in our research. So using survivors' identity to rack up dates. So usually there is a forced credits under her name. There is also forced, signing mortgage. It may be insurance. There's a lot of financial resources women he will exploit. And he or she, it works in most way. And the other one is employment or education sabotage. It's preventing survivor from working or studying. So this is a lot of tactic, for example, hiding your car key so that you can travel to work. It may be harassment at workplace. It may be also not allowing you to go back to school. So usually when you register to university, the university asks you a credit card, you'll not have a credit card to go back to school. There's a lot of tactic, and also dragging divorce paper, holding child support. These are the most prevalent, as you know, but it falls under coercive control. So this is a form of economic abuse. So in Canada, so far, we saw that the most form of economic abuse is economic exploitation for taxpayer women. And this form of violence, it affects everyone else, as you know, but for someone who has different layer of identity, like Black, racialized, gender diverse, indigenous people are highly impacted because of systemic barrier. So just about the statistics, just to give you. So in Canada, 96% of women who experience domestic violence experience economic abuse. And this is a statistics we just shared in 2021. And also, according to our national research, 63% of service providers, they lack of understanding about this form of economic abuse. And in addition to that, close to 25% of women, they were denied to have bank account. This is a statistics that break my heart to talk to here in Canada. I'm so sorry to say that. So women, they should have the right to have bank account because of many reasons the banks, they don't allow them. So one of the reason is you should have 2 ID. If I'm a homeless woman, I'm out from the banking system. So my organization advocates to remove this kind of policies in the bank. It doesn't make any sense, and it also discriminated women. And now we are able to work with the Financial Consumer Agency Canada to remove this kind of barrier. So this is a statistic. So the system is, again, perpetuating women in other ways. And of course, when a woman lives abuse, 1 in 4, that's the statistics, still continue the financial abuse impact because they have bad credits. Nobody's trusting survivors to have a rent, as you know. You should have good credits and a guarantor and initial deposits, so many women are excluded from this. So this is also another story when a woman loses over 20,000 for course a day. This is actually the statistics also we pull out from our research study. And as I said, immigrant, racialized women, high rate of control because of language barrier, immigration status, and layer identities. And plus, finance is a very private matter, as you know. Nobody talks about it. And violence is also a very private matter. It's shame. So even in our research, 5 years ago, we asked victims, so who's your first contact person when you experience violence? So they say that financial institution, because some women, especially indigenous and Black women, they are not comfortable to go to police, as you know, because of the barriers. And you can't talk to your family members because they will judge you because of the shame. So financial institution was the first line of contact. But unfortunately, the systemic barriers, the stigma, and the barriers, it also perpetuates women in many ways. So I want to share how now you have understanding about how this economic abuse affect, and then how economic abuse also interface with basic income. Of course, basic income is the most critical thing. I'm going to share you also some of the global best experience, how having basic income help women to heal and to thrive. Survivor may not access benefit due to control account. As you know, as I mentioned, even according to our research, 60% of survivors reported that their financial account were accessed and controlled by abuser. And plus now with this digital and AIs and safe the banking system, it also perpetuates. And without financial autonomy, even guarantee income will not be reachable. And the other one is survivor may not be eligible for benefit because of controlled access. So in some social service, survivor forced to disclose their income. And sadly, you may have a joint bank account or somewhere else, like it may be in Vancouver or even in the same cities. So survivors often live in fear if they hold information. So this includes money received from the government program, like it may be benefits. And disclosure can lead to violence and manipulation and financial sabotage. So this is one of the barriers. And the other is abuser also exploits the universal basic income to deep financial dependency because many survivors lose access benefit. We have seen also that even for disability benefit because they are listed under abuser income. And legally, it seems like she is accessing that resources, but still it's under her name. And then when you go to social services, because of your abuser income, you'll be rejected. So joining tax file showing too much income, even though that's not her income, spousal sponsorship conditions on immigration, and lack of also permanent residency and ID is also another problem. So of course, we need a trauma-informed access and secure delivery system to combat and then to support women. So in terms of basic income, as already this morning also discussed, basic income is very critical, as you know, for safe housing, especially for survivors to heal without job pressure and independence from debt, that's most importantly. And also, if I have sufficient money, it helps for survivor to save, to live, and then so that she can protect. And according to also our research, 78% of our clients say stable income would help them to leave their abuse. And living is a huge issue, as you know. I came from Ottawa. In Ottawa only, I was sharing also this with someone yesterday. We lost 4 women in 1 month because of femicide. So when you talk about gender-based violence, why women, they don't live because of income. So it's very sad, and we need to also, understand and very intentional when we design policy. So this is a survivors, situations and the real. So one of our barriers, especially when we advocate for universal benefits or guaranteed income, the forced disclosure income of their abuser is a huge part for survivors. And also financial institutions, as you know, they don't understand. The system doesn't trust survivors. Survivors are liars. They should have a proof of to justify their abuse. And especially financial and economic abuse, there isn't any justification. Housing is also the huge part that creates instability for victims. So I already mentioned some of the issues, about the lack of ID, the barriers, bank account access, joint filing manipulated by abuser. Actually, my organization right now, we are conducting the first national survey on mortgage and insurance access for victims. So we want to know how the system is welcoming, especially after they flee violence. So probably this also helps us to advocate and engage many industry as much as possible. And especially for newcomers and refugees in this country, violence is high, as you know, and there is a language barrier, access to digital services as well. And of course, lack of financial knowledge is also another problem. So as you know, in Canada, even like 45% women in shelter, they report they don't have even ID. I think this is a huge part we need to continue advocating. So this is the most important thing I have to share. So in terms of best practice, I think technology. Okay. Sorry. I think backslide. Yes. So I try to share you, of course, many of you are researcher and advocate on this field, but my organization also, we have a global engagement. We are part of the United Nations. I personally also part of the World Bank and IMF Global Advocacy on Financial Inclusion. I'm very proud to be part of that conversation and to make sure that financial institutions would be accountable and then have a safe and secure financial ecosystem for a women. So that's my passion. So the reason I put it is the other is most of our work is based on best practice in Australia. We are closely work with the Australian Bankers Association right now to adopt program in Canada. And we learned a lot. And truly speaking, Canada is very, very far behind in many work. I was international development worker. I worked for UN for many years. And I know Canada is the only G7 country even demonstrate internationally the feminist international policy, as you know. But for here, Canadian, it's very heartbreaking even to talk about economic abuse today. This is very sad. And especially someone look like me as a survivor, asking government to change the system which was built for 100 years, and survivors spend their time to heal without any mental health support, and we're also responsible to change the system. So that's how it really, really it hurts me, but it's good to see what other countries is doing. So in Finland, we are very close collaboration with Finland, agencies. So they have piloted, of course, the UBC, and improve mental health, employment, and stability for survivors of economic abuse. Spain, as you know, even their economy is not great, but still they have a minimum low-income program, which is helps women who live in a very precarious situation. Stockholm, California, of course, they have guaranteed income, and there was also a study. We know that 40% of participants use that fund to pay their debt, which is a huge relief for victims. And also, it increases full employment and reduces stress. And the key takeaway is direct cash. It's really, really, it helps women for her dignity. So in Canada, November 26th is a National Economic Abuse Awareness Day, which is a day I flee violence. And this day is also recognized in Australia, UK, New Zealand, and US into province, into states. And of course, like in South Africa as well. So the reason we are talking this aspect of work is, number one, the statistics, number two, the taboo, number three, we don't have any data. And then number four, when we talk about like basic income, we need to understand women barriers. So that's what I do this work. So in terms of policy design, I know there is a pilot, and based on that, still we have an argument. So one of the arguments is economic control and economic course date is not included. In Canada, we're very, very far behind. The first Bill 41, which is introduced in Ontario to protect even human traffic victims, to protect this kind of date, even it's not a law. It's not even considered as a crime. So the policy is still like the pilot, it missed some of the coercive dates, aspects of, work. And we feel like survivors of economic and financial abuse is excluded. And then it needs more integration, and financial autonomy is very important. And there is also statistics, actually, we are right now working how fraudulent dates, because abuser also puts victims in a lot of fraudulent dates with CRA. Of course, we are working with CRA right now. As you know, CRA is a government agency. We don't have a capacity to convince the government, any data and research, so that has to be also considered. And the other problem, actually, gap is, I know province and territories, they are not working together in Canada, and I know everyone is advocating in many ways, but still there are a gap. And the welfare model is also another thing, like, we need to make sure that survivors is included in many ways. So in terms of intersectionality and the hidden justice, yeah, as I said, different group of people are impacted by this form of violence in many ways. So when we talk about access to income or gender-based violence, it's almost intersectional, including also mental health. So we need to change from equity to justice. That's our advocacy right now. We need to be trauma-informed. I know every organization, they try to do trauma-informed work, but we know that it's underfunded. And we need to understand also the GBV aspect is also a huge part. And survivor-led also organization has to be supported and listened. We need to have a secure, protected, income. And flexibility is also very important to recognize the survivors' realities. And including financial literacy and healing is very important. So our response as a small organization, we are a very small organization, but we work amazing job anyways, not only in Canada and beyond. So we introduced the SHIELD model. So this is the economic justice model we introduced based on our two research. This is the first Canadian comprehensive trauma-informed framework specifically designed to address economic justice. And it helps service provider, shelters, legal system, financial institution to recognize and respond and to prevent financial exploitation. And right now, we are, actually not now, for the past 8 years, we're asking Canadian Bankers Association to introduce a code of conduct. So the code of conduct is the most important thing to make them accountable. So we drafted the voluntary code of conduct many years ago. Still, we are working on that. So if we have a code of conduct, probably we'll have a national guideline to support these women. And the code also aims to close the gap survivor realities and the institutional response. And right now we will closely work with them. And this also helps us to prevent re-traumatizations of victims. And the other thing is we will continue advocating for basic income guarantee in line with our systemic barriers, work. And we need to continue spreads, the issues of protecting women in all area, because our work is not only economic justice. So how we work is economic justice for us is economic safety plus economic security. When a woman don't have any economic safety, it's very hard to talk about, economic justice. So in terms of recommendation, so one of the recommendation is, of course, it would be very essential in order to change the system to train people on how to identify and respond, economic violence. And if survivors have, secured payment routine options, that would be also another way. So another way to support them. So when we talk about basic income guarantee, legal protection for coerced debt, it should be part of our advocacy. Of course, trauma-informed financial coaching also needs investment and multi-sector partnerships. So this work is not only government and non-for-profit. Financial institutions should be at the center of our advocacy for. Otherwise, still 25% women are denied to have bank account. Without bank account, how can I receive my disability benefit? So this is the reality we need to understand. And in addition to that as well, we need to also continue including, because technology is a huge part, so mobile banking by itself also, it discriminates some demography in our communities. And we also advocated for Safe Fund. Safe Fund for survivors is very critical. I know some provinces, they have that, but it's not sustainable, and it's not also equitable for everyone else. So at the National Voice of Economic Abuse, we are right now asking to increase income pilot center for survivors and racialized women. Of course, it's all about big. We don't have the capacity, but we're looking away on how we could help victims for coerced day law reform. That really help because that solves the homelessness and then mental health issue somehow, and women at least she can get a relief to continue her life. And debt relief and credit repairing program. So in our organization, we have a mini clinic. So this clinic helps for a woman to fix their credit. We work with Equifax and TransUnion to support these women, but still we don't have a lot of capacity because the demand is so huge. And tech-based tool to detect and block financial sabotage. And many people are right now impacted even by romance scam. Even last year, we organized one of the largest summit on romance scams. So many women, they don't have even the access their own banking, and we need to educate them. And survivor compensation and guarantee fund to cover damage. So even what we have seen is when survivor have her own apartment, some abusers, they destroy, they break the windows and they damage, and then when she leaves the house, she's responsible to pay. So we need to have like that kind of damage and compensation. And definitely gender inclusive financial policy is very important. I think most of our policy is not gender sensitive. That's the reason we're asking government to include gender lens is very critical. So survivor needs they are not only need finance, but they also need safety and planning. So economic abuse is a violence, even though it's not criminalized in Canada, but basic income is a protection, which is very, very critical for survivors. So the final call to action, so when we build a system and then advocate, we don't build a policy, assume autonomy where control exists. Still, there's a control. So we need to work on that as well. And big must be survivor involvement and then equitable. That's our advocacy. Equity requires not just an income, but a power and freedom. Survivor must not be left behind in our economic future. Because in Canada, I think according to our statistics, close to 250,000 survivors. So when you see the economic ratio and the index, it's really, really sad. Still, they live in poverty. And then why? You know the reason. So we need to make sure that we need to be very intentional. So in Australia, as you know, they have amazing programs, especially helping women who have been through this kind of violence. Not only the government, they have a special commissioner, a domestic abuse commission at the government, which is funded by the larger government. And in addition to that, women, they can get their own access, not only access to basic income, but access for transportations and proper financial support so women, they can exit. Even after they leave, there is a system that can help them to pay their electricities, energies, and all those sector-wide support. So I'm just almost finished. I hope I have time. So 3 years ago, we conducted a national policy score map. And this score map is based on the research we gathered 2 years ago, which is in collaboration with University of Ottawa Law Department. So we try to see how each province is responding economic justice. Probably, I don't know, I can encourage you to check our website. So this is a provincial, we come up with 11 key indicators. Most of them are the legal aspects, how economic abuse is defined, how economic justice is addressed. So you can check your province in our website. So I just want to share you. So what we learned is, there are some provinces, they do better than the others. So this core map is developed by, researchers from 2 universities. So I would encourage you. Thank you so much for your attention. And I know I talk about more violence, but I feel like it's a very important space for someone who wants to advocate, to understand, and then to be more inclusive. And then we need to also make sure that engage financial institutions in our community in this advocacy. And then it's good to ask them, hey, do you have any inclusive program for our victims? That's the most important thing. And I know corporate companies, they care about value and risk. It's very sad. We are a very small organization. We are now teaching Canadian Bankers Association about vulnerability, how it looks like. Even it took us almost 8 years to change the word vulnerability to, women and gender diverse. It takes us a lot. So I think intersectionality is very, very critical for this work. Yeah, so this is all my presentation. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer. Okay. Yes.
Thank you so much for that. That was very informative. I'm just wondering if there are intersections with the national plan to end gender-based violence and basic income guarantee. I know they're built into the national plan. There are like pillars of social services and supports and things like that. But as far as I've seen anyways, there's not like a direct connection between basic income guarantee and that plan. And I'm just wondering, maybe I missed it, or maybe like just what connections there might be between those two things, or if there's work being done with the National Action Plan and income guarantee.
Okay, so for National Action Plan, sorry, I didn't mention. So I think we are the only agency in Canada. We mobilize 60 organizations to include economic abuse and in relation to income support. So you can check on page 214, I believe, 242, yeah, because they put it like our recommendation. So yeah, we already clearly mentioned, but the problem of NAP is there is no any practical recommendation from the government. So right now we are reaching out to all provinces and territories to have a conversation and then to make sure the 4-year SNAP funding to fund and then to make sure that that funding is also to invest on women economic security. So yeah, so NAP was one of the most important work, or one of our achievement was, it was included, it was a 2-page recommendation we shared. Okay.
So my question always is, why are the banking association, why do they drag their heels on trying to solve this problem? What is their story that keeps them behind?
Yeah, you know what? We need to build a business case. These people are very corporate, number one. Even the leadership, I don't know, I don't want to mention, but there are people and then owned by men. Sorry, I'm not saying men, but that's how. Some people, they don't understand even the lived experience of people. They're not diverse. And in addition to that, many, many barriers. So it took us, for me to get a response from the Canadian Bankers Association's president, it takes me 8 years to respond an email. I do medias and a lot of engagement. But what we did is when we work with CBC, they start to come up, and then now they are helping us. So, and as you know, the FCS is introduced in 2021, the National Financial Literacy Strategy. My organization is part of that. We are one of the early adopters, but still we are invisible because all these big corporate, they care about for women who already make 6 figures and plus. Even all the entrepreneurship fund, for example, as you know, RBC, promised and pledged $70 million for women, but there is no any funding for survivors. Survivors entrepreneurs are not excluded. Number one, they don't have bank account. They can't even heal and thrive. That's the system. So it's us now. We have to come together and then convince. So for that, we have a national campaign every year. It's called Help Us Rise. So we educate these financial institutions, leaders, and decision makers to understand the systemic barrier what women are experiencing in terms of access of economic resources. So I will invite you, anyone else, to contact me. I have a fact sheet. I have also some posters you can take, and we can collaborate to push forward.
Can I just ask a part B of that? What about financial technology companies? Are they any more open?
Yeah.
Or are they the same as the banks?
Yeah, so fintech companies. So we work with Fincaden and then Fintech Canada, and also the Canadian Center for Fraud and Victim Association. That's the abbreviation. So they are very willing, because the fintech companies they are very small companies, and then they need also visibilities. Even sometimes they support us. But the problem is the payment section of this banking. I'm not a bank expert, sorry. What I know is there is no any inclusion. So people are not diverse. Still now the tech is owned and controlled by some demography. So they don't understand the complexity of women barriers. So we're right now creating a fact sheet and then to share them. what poverty looks like, even for someone like who came out from violence, even for someone who's like lives in social benefits. So they're very willing and open to come, but it's all about, funding for that. And as you know, to work this system change, 2-3 years funding from wage, it doesn't solve this problem. You have to hire, you should have a big staff and to push forward. So system change is also underfunded, as you know, so that's also another barrier from the government. Yeah. A lot of questions.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm so grateful for you and the work you're doing. I'm from downtown Toronto, and we have, of course, thousands of women, newcomer women, who are struggling. So I really hope we can meet there and talk with you and work with you at some point in the near future. These issues are very much present. I'm also a survivor, and had I not gotten rent geared to income housing, I know I would have lost my children, and I certainly wouldn't be here today. So yeah, I'm very grateful for everything you're doing. I wondered if you would approach the credit union sector.
Yeah, so Jen is just here actually. So we have a national task force. Jen is also part of our national task force. So there are 2 groups, the finance and the banking. So the banking groups there are 41 major banks and credit unions. So Alterna, ATB, they work with us. So right now we're asking them to develop programs and then product for women. So if we have program and then product banking program, so it's very easy for a woman to access all the social supports, even their benefits. So it's very easy to work with credit union. Yeah, but bank, you have to be a client, it's very complicated. So yeah, and then if you know any credit union who works with women, and then I would love also to connect, in the community.
Bless.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Messi. I think I've followed the work of your organization for a while, so it's so incredible to see it and hear, but also what you've underscored of the importance of survivor-led and survivor-informed, because I think a lot of the conversation, even around financial empowerment and financial literacy or domestic violence, hasn't always been connected. I think some of the pieces that you spoke to, particularly around the need for financial institutions and the systems, but I was wondering if you had any example of community organizations, I know Canada's behind, but that are kind of leading some of this work, or exciting things that you're seeing.
Yeah, so we always encourage organization even to use our tools and our SHIELD model to adopt. So the Northwest Territory government, I'm not sure from Northwest here, we conducted the research to pilots 4 years ago, I believe, in pandemic. And other than there is in Ontario Women Act, they have small work on economic abuse, but we didn't see so far anyone, so we'll take care of everything. So hopefully many organizations, they will come, and don't know what will happen with the 6 year SNAP funding. So I hope that funding is announced. Hopefully many organizations also to include that. But the problem is even funding agencies, they don't understand. So yes, it's very it's just painful sometimes as someone who speak about this for my day-to-day. Even for funders, is it like the economic crisis happened in Alberta in 28, or is it, even they don't know the term economic, and also when they think about financial abuse, is it like a scam online with the seniors? I know there's a seniors financial abuse, we have an amazing program. So one of the challenge is for many people, they don't understand even the complexity, but it's everyday life, it's hidden, nobody understands you, and then nobody trusts even survivors. And the justice system also, it doesn't work. And the huge part is also the consumer lawyers. They are not educated in Canada. So many countries, consumer lawyers are very well educated, the financial consequence of victims of gender-based violence. So when we work with consumer lawyers, they see from the consumer side as normal citizens. They don't understand the layered trauma and then the impact. So I think there's a lot of reason, and also data as well. So now we're able to collaborate also with Windsor University. We're gonna have another research. So we'll continue to do that. I know the BC Law Society last week, they launched also another research, so we'll see what will happen. A lot of questions.
Messi, I don't need to come up with you. Just wanted to thank you so very much. It was a lot of information, and it's incredible the amount of work that your small organization is doing. So thank you so much for telling us about it today.
Thank you, Meseret. That was so fantastic. So to let folks know that we are going to end our session here, and as I mentioned, we will have dancing in this room from 3 until 3:30. You're welcome to join us. And our mix and mingle for this evening will start at 4 in the lobby with our panel, PEI panel presentation starting at 5 p.m. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.